So to finish this off, we're just going to look at some of the key players in this game, the game being primary productivity. And we might have discussed already, if not, just a little review, that autotrophs refer to organisms that can produce their own energy. So plants and algae that are doing photosynthesis. And also the bacteria in the gut of the tube worms in the deep sea hydrothermal vents. They are also autotrophs. Now, heterotrophs are organisms that can't do that, so that includes us. We have to eat in order to get energy, so anything that has to eat something else to get energy is a heterotroph. They can't produce their own energy from photosynthesis or chemosynthesis. So if we look at our food pyramid here, at the very bottom we have the autotrophs. In this case, we're going to use ocean, of course, as an example. We have the producers, most of which are phytoplankton. So they float in the water, you can't even see them, but they're producing a ton of oxygen and a ton of food energy in the form of glucose. So they get eaten by the primary consumers. That could be fish, that could be a baleen whale like a humpback. They like to eat plankton. And then larger plankton tend to eat smaller plankton. So zooplankton are animal plankton that consume phytoplankton or plant plankton. So primary consumers are going to eat the producers. So they're going to get some of that original energy from the sun, but not all of it, because remember, the producers are losing some of that energy as heat, and also for their own metabolisms, their own metabolic activity uses some of it. So then the secondary consumers are going to eat the primary consumers. So that's going to be whatever eats, big fish eats little fish and so on. So we have sea lions, seabirds, other baleen whales might eat some of that zooplankton and so on. So they're going to get some of that energy, but less as you work your way up the food pyramid. And at the very top, we have our top consumers. So that's going to be sharks, killer whales, sea lions, salmon, seabirds. So you can see I have sea lions on two different parts here. It just depends on what they're eating. If they're eating a smaller fish that's a primary consumer, then that would kind of make them a secondary consumer. If they're eating a big salmon, then they're up here near the top. So it just depends. There's some crossover. And a couple other members of this crew that you might not have been aware of, decomposers. So that's bacteria and fungi. They're going to break down dead stuff. And scavengers. And there's a lot of different examples of scavengers. So in this case, an example might be certain types of mollusks. There's certain snails that are scavengers. And crustaceans like crabs are notoriously scavengers. So you probably remember the herbivores refer to plant eaters, carnivores, meat eaters. Omnivores are both plant and animal eaters. But you probably haven't heard a couple of these terms. Detritivores are organisms that will eat detritus. So that's basically organic waste. There could be examples of insects and centipedes and millipedes that do this. And then there's decomposers. So bacteria and worms and fungi. Again, they're going to break down dead stuff into reusable nutrients. So not all of this material, not all organic materials are taken up by organisms right away. So when decomposition happens, before decomposition happens, when detritivores come in and try to eat organic waste, their waste can become dissolved organic matter. So that's just basically bits of organic material dissolved in the water. Phytoplankton might eat this, other detritivores might eat this, and of course decomposers might eat this. So there's a little bit of a cycle here. So we have exchange with the surface. Carbon dioxide is taken in by the primary consumers, the primary producers. So remember, producers take in carbon dioxide, give off oxygen. They're consumed. So here's the phytoplankton getting consumed by these over here are zooplankton. So these guys have to eat the phytoplankton. And there's a little plankton circle going on here where there's death, there's aggregation, they accumulate, and their dead material tends to settle into the water column. And then that can be eaten up either by microbes that are decomposing them, or other larger organisms decomposing them. And that can decompose even further and break down. So there's just all kinds of breakdown happening in the water column. So big stuff dying, sinking down in the water column and being eaten either by detritivores or being broken down by decomposers. So it's just a little example. We don't need to get too far into this to see that. All right, so that is all for this week. Just again, a little review. You might need to remember this term in particular, dissolved organic matter, might come up again because that's important when we look at the ecology of other marine food chains.